Yes, coming to you cordless, everyone. It's Wednesday night, October 30th, 2024, and I'm still alive. Which, after a couple of surgeries, you wonder if that's even possible. So, it's 9 p.m. on the East Coast of the United States, 6 p.m. on the West Coast, 8 a.m. in Singapore, noon in Sydney, Australia, and here where I'm sitting in Northeast Minneapolis, it's 8 p.m. Central Daylight Time until Sunday, I guess. And I'm Jim Peters, and welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night. This is episode number 171. If you want to mark your scorecards at home, our guest tonight is Mark Tapscott. Mark is the chief congressional correspondent for the Epoch Times in New York City. Now, I've said this before. I'm going to say it again. They don't pay me to do this. They don't expect this. The Epoch Times and along with the Wall Street Journal, are the only two traditional newspapers in America worth paying for anymore. They really are. Now, if you look on the Wikipedia, it will tell you that the Epoch Times is a far right leaning news organization, and yeah, they're far right leaning because they don't like communists. So this newspaper, this news organization, was started by a bunch of Chinese expats, and they're totally against the Chinese Communist Party. Wow, that's really tough. You know, my parents escaped from communism, so I have no problem with this at all. They do really good reporting work, and when it comes to American politics, it's pretty much just straight down the middle. So anyway, Mark is our congressional correspondent, their chief, and we're going to talk to him. We've talked to him several times. He's been on the show several times before. We're going to ask him about the election, what's going on, especially what's going on. My God. Now, last night I told you, and I know I'm boring you. I'm telling you about the weather here in Minneapolis, but it fascinates me to no end. And I hate winter, and I always have. And like I said last night, like I said previously, you know Minnesota as icebox of America, and 4 months of the year, that's true. Winter here is awful. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat it at all. There's a lot of people who like it, especially if you're into winter sports, skiing, that sort of thing. We don't have like huge mountains here. The skiing isn't fantastic, but we got enough big hills to make it, you can actually eke something out. Yesterday, it was 80 degrees here on October 29th. That set an all-time record. We set a record the day before, too. This last September was the warmest September on record. This is going to be the warmest October on record. And get a load of this. I'm watching Belinda Jensen, my girlfriend, on KARE 11 News, the NBC affiliate here. And yeah, everyone knows I have a crush on her. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sure. She's been doing that. She's been there for like 29 years. So it's hard to believe. I mean, she's not much younger than me, but I don't know. So anyway, she's saying that's at 10:15 local time, and it's still 77 degrees outside. And at midnight, I went out to take out the trash here. What can I say? I do a local nightly show. I've been like sleeping. I'm keeping these hours forever. Basically, I don't do anything before 12 noon. I don't. Most people take the nights, they go to work early, they work 9 to 5 or whatever, then they take the night off. I do the opposite. I take the morning off, and I work in the afternoon and the evening. So at midnight here, it was still 77 degrees. And get a load of this. That was last night. Tomorrow morning, it's supposed to snow here. Are you kidding me? Like, it's just crazy crap, I don't know. Whatever. And of course, it's Halloween tomorrow. I got to promo this before I bring Mark on. We got our big Halloween show. We did it last year. It's a month in review panel. Same guys, same goofy crap. It was one of our highest watched shows ever. So, I forgot to tell you about this too. We're not on Blog Talk Radio again tonight. They failed again. I'm getting off of this. I went on a big diatribe 2 nights ago. No, this is we're over on this. I'm quitting. So we could not connect. So and I pay them a fortune. That's the thing. We pay to do this. So nope. Can't tolerate it anymore. I'm done. So we're not doing any calling this evening. When I have a few remarks after Mark's done about some weird science stuff, and then we're calling it a night because you can't call in. Isn't that great? What a great way to end a show, huh? So, but tomorrow night, we got the guys. And I was going to say, the reason I brought the thing up about Blog Talk Radio is because even if we're on Blog Talk Radio tomorrow night, you want to watch this. You don't want to just listen to it. You might get a little confused with the voices, and also all the guys are dressing up. Well, Don Zora usually dresses up, but and Larry is just a very, very handsome man. So Larry Newman. Anyways, that's tomorrow night. Monday night, election eve. You got my predictions. I'm going solo Monday night. And besides, everyone in the freaking world is too busy to come on the show, so screw it, I don't even trying. Tuesday night, election night, we're taking the night off. I thought about doing all sorts of plans, maybe some live election results. I thought there's a whole bunch of people doing it, and most of them are going to do it better than we could do it, so screw it. Go watch something else. And Wednesday, the night after the election, Wednesday night, Jeff Meyer from Cong News, the CEO and publisher, he's going to be here. We're going to talk about the results. And we should have a good guest on Thursday night, too, but I haven't actually nailed that down. So at any rate, Mark Tapscott's coming in just a second. Here's a little commercial from Cong News. Hi, all. Jim Peters again for Cong News. Let me tell you one of the greatest things about Cong News. It's free. It's completely and totally free. You don't need to register. You don't need to log in, subscribe, none of that stuff. Sure, they run a few ads on the front page, but if you're an old fogey like me, you might actually appreciate this, because when you check out Cong News at Cong.com, you'll probably notice that it's the closest thing to an old-fashioned hard copy newspaper that you'll find online. The latest up-to-the-minute news from 75 high-quality sources collected every 3 hours, all laid out with photos and headlines directly from the articles. And when you click on a story, you go directly to that story. No ad page, no interstitial page, none of that stuff. This is the way online news is meant to be. And did I mention that it's completely free? Seriously, how much of stuff in America is free now, right? That's of quality anyway. So check this out for yourself. It's at Conk.com, CONK.com, Conk News. Joining us from, Mark, forgot to ask you, are you in Washington?
No, actually tonight I am blessed to be in my home in Sykesville, Maryland, which is about 38 miles due north of Washington, D.C.
And you don't call that Washington, huh?
No. I'm in Maryland. Carroll County is literally directly due north and is on the border with Pennsylvania. It happens to be the most Republican county in the state, but in Maryland, that's not saying much.
No, it isn't, is it? Well, we haven't talked to you for a while. This is Mark Tapscott from the Epoch Times. How are you doing? How's things?
Well, things are good. I have to tell you, you said you wanted to talk about campaign stuff tonight, and boy, I think we should thank President Joe Biden. I think he may have just handed the election to Donald Trump.
Well, yeah, and so that's my first question here, because I know you and I, and first of all, you haven't, I guess you're working on some top secret project for the Epoch Times, so you haven't posted much lately. So, I mean, I just thought I'd start off here, and I know I don't know where we're going to go, but we'll go somewhere. I know that. But here's my question to you about this whole garbage thing. I have a hard time at this point believing that this was not deliberate. And here's my thing. I talk to people all the time. I have Jeff Meyer coming on next week. I used to work for him at Cong News, and his thing is he says in politics there are no coincidences. And then conversely to that, I have Tim Conaway, longtime editor of Resilient Publications, and he's an election judge here in Minnesota, and he says he's constantly told me over the years, I give these people way too much credit. They're just bozos. They can't think that far ahead. But so I don't know where you stand on this, but I have a hard time believing this was an accident.
Well, I'll tell you, Jim, I have spent a career here in Washington, D.C. covering Congress and the national political scene. And I'll be honest, I go back and forth between there are no such things as coincidences, and no, they're all a bunch of bozos. It all just happens.
Still there?
You know, I think it's I have a feeling that it may well be intentional on Joe Biden's part. You know, whatever you think about Joe Biden, and in my personal view, his presidency is, you know, ranks right down there with James Buchanan and Jimmy Carter and other guys down there. But still, the man got 14 million votes in Democratic primaries, and then they throw him off the ticket. If I were him and his family, I'd be pretty upset about that.
Yeah, and not only this, Mark, not only that, I still maintain, and I did even when they threw him off the ticket, and still do, that for all their bitching and moaning, I think he still would have done better that against Trump than any other person they could have found. I think he would have lost still, but I think he would have done better than Kamala is doing and is going to do. And so, yeah, he is. I think he is right to be pissed. And also, if I may say so, I've dealt with a lot of people with dementia in my family. I don't know about you, but you know, he has good days and bad days. And the thing about dementia is that you basically, what happens is the bad days end up taking over the good days. But he hasn't gotten there yet. I mean, he has more. I do think he has more good days and bad days. And for that, I think he can reason cogently. And you know, it's like he thinks, well, I'm going to go down in history as the only person who beat Trump, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, you know, I mean, I hate to say it, but I agree with you. I mean, I don't hate to say that I agree with you, Jim Peters, but I hate to say that Biden, I mean, he beat Trump in 20. And we can argue all day and night about, you know, did he beat him fair and square? But the bottom line is he's been in the White House for the last 4 years.
That's right. He did. So he's the winner. He was there. That's right. I agree with you.
He's there. And, you know, even after that horrendous debate performance, I mean, it is true. All of us have bad days. And boy, Biden had a bad one that night.
Yeah.
I still think, like you suggested, that you know, he would have had more good days and he would have had more bad days during the campaign, but that happened in 20 and he still won. And there's no reason why, given the givens, I think he would have had a better chance of winning than she has. I mean, look at what has happened since she became the nominee. You know, this has been one of the worst campaigns I have ever seen.
Yeah, and you've been around. You've been around for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just the
go ahead.
Over and over again being asked direct questions, which, you know, everybody can see she's evading it. I mean, if I was one of the journalists on the campaign trail, and I covered campaigns before, it's tough to get the opportunity to ask a candidate a question because everybody is trying to do it at the same time you are. But you would think somebody on the campaign trail would have said to her, look, you know, we're tired of being treated like idiots. We're not morons. We're asking these questions because we represent the people, and the people have a right to know what your answer is. So give us a straight answer for a change. That hasn't happened.
Yeah, but Mark, I mean, the quote unquote mainstream media, which was like, I mean, I've been reading several stories for the last few days. You know, there's a Michael Harrison at Talkers Magazine. He's been coming out saying that the Joe Rogan interview with the president was a turning point in media in the United States, in the sense that now what was the alternate media has now become the mainstream media. But okay, so you got all these traditional news organizations, CBS, and it's like they're carrying water for her campaign. Although I do find this really interesting, and I don't know if you've been paying attention to this. I'm curious to see if you have. CNN seems to have gotten off the wagon. It seems like they've decided they're tired of this, and they're starting to.
I have.
Go ahead.
I have noticed that, and I think it's significant. You you haven't seen that much at all at ABC or NBC. There's a couple of guys at CBS that I've seen have asked some pretty good questions. But CNN, those guys, they I think some of them are aware of the fact that this is nonsense answers that we're getting. We're all being played for fools, and I mean, they still have some pride of professionalism, and at a certain point, you have to say, "I'm tired of being played for a fool."
And then on top
I
of,
tell you, Jim, I think the Joe Rogan interview and the fact that the LA Times owner and the Washington Post owner and the people who control the purse strings at USA Today and that string of papers, they said, no, we're not going to endorse, parentheses, Kamala Harris, because who else were they going to endorse? Because the American people no longer trust what we say and they don't believe what we report. That could be the thing that finally, makes the difference to bring back real journalism in this country. And it will come back in the form of podcast in some ways. I don't exactly know how that's going to happen, but we had blogs 20 years ago, and now we got podcasts. And somehow or another, people who are in the newspaper industry are going to have to figure out how to adapt to it. If they don't, and if they don't change the way they deal with the news, they're gone.
yeah, and I assume you know this. I mean, CNN's ratings have been tanking for 4 years nonstop. I mean, with one single month exception, they've gone down every single month for the last 4 years. I mean, they're under 500,000 viewers now, and in cable news, anything over 1 million viewers is nobody. It's nothing, zero. So
they're where MSNBC was 10 years ago.
yeah, exactly, right. And so I mean, you think that maybe somebody over there woke up and said, we really got to get out of this. This is like, I just, and then I'm sure you probably saw this too, that in the last few days, in less than a week, the Washington Post lost 10% of their subscribers. 250,000 people quit. It's like, well, I guess they weren't being. Go ahead.
Has the Post confirmed that? I haven't seen a confirmation from the Post. I'd be surprised if they did, but.
Well, I think,
I have no question that you just all you have to do is look at the comments.
Yeah, I think they confirmed
on their website.
I think they confirmed 200,000. I got to admit, I don't know if they've confirmed.
Did they?
I think they did. Yeah, I don't know if they've confirmed 250,000, but yeah. So
I have a particular interest in the Washington Post because my sweet wife, she's been retired for 5 years now, but she spent 25 years at the Washington Post selling display newspaper advertising.
Yeah,
I can tell you that the people on the business side, they look at most of them, not all of them, but most of them, at least when she was there. It's probably changed a bit now because they've probably hired a bunch of younger people who don't have any political history. But they didn't see things the same way the newsroom did. In fact, they often, disagreed with them greatly. And, sooner or later, it's like one of those guys, I don't remember which one of the economists said things that cannot continue won't.
Yes.
You can't continue. You can't continue losing readership and losing credibility and continue in business.
Mark, I think I'll have that put on my gravestone. That's pretty good.
There you go.
Well,
I think that was Nixon's. I think that was Nixon's economist.
Nixon?
I'm not sure.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
My sister did the same role at a newspaper as your wife. And the amazing thing is, and people don't realize this, that up until recently, print advertising in a printed newspaper still had a much better response than online advertising did. I think it's collapsed now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it worked. It was incredibly effective, which was one of the reasons people made the newspaper barons made so much money.
Yes, that's absolutely true. Before she was at the Post for those many years, She was actually at the Washington Times, and the Washington Times at that point had about 100,000 daily circulation, and the Post had 800,000. And you know, the Washington Post basically was a license to print money because everybody had to advertise in it.
Right. If you owned a small town newspaper in America, you were basically printing money. All these guys and all these, and that's where I came from. Supposedly, I'm not going to name the city, but supposedly the city I lived in was the smallest city in America with a real legitimate daily newspaper, supposedly. And I know that the guys who owned it, they were printing money. They were robber barons. It was like it worked out fantastic. But the amazing thing is, Mark, is that has not transferred over into online. It has an online advertising does not work, and at this point, everybody's figured that out. And I find that kind of fascinating because I don't quite understand why. But do you have any ideas?
Well, I have a theory about that. The thing about a print newspaper is, you hold it in your hand, and then that concentrates, in a sense, the people who have the paper, and they get it for a reason, or usually for several reasons. On the internet, it's like you've got this unlimited menu of choices, and there's no effort required to go to any one of them at any given time. And therefore, it's much more difficult to develop the habit of using a particular product. We all have our favorite websites, but we all also have our times on the computer when we are just scrolling, And I think that has something to do with it.
Mark, I've never heard that theory before, and I think you might have something there. I think that actually makes a lot of sense.
I think it's a product of how the internet has, we've heard a lot in recent years about reduced attention spans. People don't have the attention spans that they used to. When you and I were growing up, we'd sit down and read for 30 minutes, an hour. It was no big deal.
Yeah.
It's kind of an effort to do that now.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I don't know I basically have to read for my job here. So I spend hours a day reading the news. But you're too busy like reporting it. So I don't know if you do or not, but
Well, I have to read it all the time.
Yeah.
From as many places as possible. So, but I suspect, Jim, that you probably you go to, you're a smart guy. You go to a lot of different sources because you try to confirm this and, confirm that. So you go where you think you can find confirmation of things.
Yeah.
That's what journalists do.
Right. Yeah. I've never called myself a journalist. I never have, but so if you are, I guess I'm flattered. I don't know. Hey, I want to ask. I want to ask.
Insult, believe me.
Say again. What was that?
It's not an insult, believe me.
Well, I'm lucky. I know guys like you, and I'm serious. That's not empty flattery at all. It's like I know a lot of people like you, and I talk to them regularly. And he's like, you're still kind of doing the good work, and a lot of these people. And I hate to say it. I don't know if you agree with me or not. If you don't have to say. It's the younger people, I think, that are not doing the good work. I mean, I really hate to say that, but I think they've been trained a different way. So, I don't know.
Well, or they haven't been trained. That's the problem.
Yeah. Or you're right. You're right. That's right. That too. Right. Yeah.
I can't, Jim, I can't tell you how many young applicants over the years, and when I say this now, I'm referring to the last 15 years, let's say. So many young applicant journalists and young journalists who have, maybe they come to me and they're looking for their second job, let's say. And number one, most importantly, they can't compose a coherent sentence. If you can't figure out how to express something in a coherent sentence, you are never going to be successful as a journalist.
No shit. Oh, and hold on, and I gotta interrupt you for a second. Now, writing has become. I mean, I've just turned 69. In the 50 years I've been an adult, writing has gone from something a general skill everyone's supposed to have to a specialty. But the real terrible thing is,
Yes.
a lot of people for that it's a specialty for still can't do it. that blows my mind. Right.
You're absolutely, and that points to the fundamental problem. Our education system for the last 50 years has steadily gone from providing the kind of basic skills, life survival and prospering skills that everybody needs to have, to this specialization, and now to ideological indoctrination. You can go to college and major in diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah.
What kind of skills is that? If your job is to find out what happened when the guy robbed the bank and the policeman shot him on the street as he was coming out of the bank, you have to be able to convey what happened in a communicatable, understandable way. If you don't know how to compose the sentence to do that, you can't report the news.
Yeah.
And it's I'm sorry, you got me started on this.
That's all right. That's okay.
The other thing that they don't have is they don't understand, and they haven't studied history, especially American history. It's like the maxim says, if you don't know what happened before, you're going to repeat the same mistakes over and over again.
Yeah, and Mark, can I ask you? In my mind, they don't even know recent American history. Like Nixon, or I marked the start of the quote unquote modern era in 1960, or basically JFK's inauguration. So it's been 60 years, but most of these quote unquote kids don't even know that stuff from there.
Yeah, or what they think they know about it is the left's Howard Zinn version of American history, which is pure propaganda.
Yeah.
And they think Watergate is the only thing you need to know about Richard Nixon. He was a crook.
Yeah.
And I happened that there was some truth to that, but there was a lot more to Richard Nixon than Watergate. So.
Yeah,
anyway.
Matter of fact, I would even say it's a relatively minor part of his presidency when all is said and done. But that's me.
Yeah.
And also what's happened in even the last 4 years. I mean, I could make an argument that there's stuff that's happened during the Biden administration that's actually way worse than what Nixon did in Watergate. Now I had a guy here named Jeff Shepard. I don't know if you know who he is. He was go ahead.
No, I don't.
Okay, he was deputy counsel for Nixon during Watergate. I had him on for almost 2 hours. Just a fascinating guy, But he said his theory, if you want to call it a theory, although he was actually there. I mean, he said, there's a lot of people that think that Watergate was actually a setup. The actual burglary was a setup. I don't know if I can buy that because I know the way it went down. But what Shepard says, he's certain that what happened is the Democrats latched onto this and basically made it into the debacle it really was. I mean, it was basically just a two-bit burglary, And so, go ahead.
No, I agree with that absolutely, and I have to say, I didn't become a journalist until 1985. In 1964, when I was 14 years old, I just happened to hear Ronald Reagan speak, or watch Ronald Reagan speak on behalf of Barry Goldwater on TV one night, and by the end of that speech by Reagan, I was waving the flags and decided, I'm not going to be shortstop for the New York Yankees. I'm going to go into politics and help save America. That's what it was about. So I was for Reagan in '68. I was not a Nixon enthusiast at all. But I have to give the man credit. He did achieve some positive things in his presidency. He sure taught George McGovern a lesson about how to run for the presidency.
Yeah,
But,
well,
he had his flaws. He
it-
had his flaws,
but
and
hold it.
they were ultimately his undoing.
Mark, did McGovern even have a chance in hell? I mean, basically he was. I'm going back to the time. He was kind of such a weirdo that I don't know. I mean, he just got trounced, and but
He did.
that was partly all. It was both the fact that Nixon was doing pretty well in the public's eyes, and also the fact that he
Yeah.
was just kind of like he was like a far left loon kind of. I don't know. It's like so.
Well, does it remind you of anything?
Yeah, I know. That's exactly
Speaking of far left loons,
right. I know. It's amazing. And so
Mhm.
yeah, I look at look at Watergate, and the stuff with the Biden family to me is way, way worse than Watergate. Way worse,
Yeah. I, if it's true, and frankly, the evidence that I have looked at is very persuasive. I'm not saying that it's absolutely certain, but it's persuasive. Joe Biden has profited off of his public service immensely for a long time,
Yeah.
and nobody ever accused Nixon of selling access to himself.
No.
But that's what it appears Biden has done for a long time.
As a matter of fact,
That's
Shepard said this on the show, and I know he's true. He didn't have to mention it. He said, history is pretty much determined now for certain that Nixon didn't actually know about the break-in. He didn't find out till after the fact. So the real problem was that he tried to cover it up. It wasn't that that he was trying to cover up his involvement
Yes.
in it. He was not involved.
Yeah.
They did this
Yeah.
and they didn't tell him. So,
Yeah. You may recall Jimmy Carter got some grief because he was actually devoting some of his attention to, and this was early in his term, who was being allowed to use the White House tennis courts. And everybody said, if he's only worried about who's doing that, he's not worried about the other stuff that he needs to be.
yeah.
Richard Nixon never worried about who was using the tennis courts in the White House.
No, he
of
wasn't.
course
No.
he didn't know about that burglary.
That's right. That's right. Hey, let's go on to some of the demographics that's going on here with the election. So I've read two really interesting facts recently. One I didn't read. One I heard on Sean Hannity's radio show. I'm driving around this afternoon, and he has the guy on who runs Rasmussen polling, which has been over the last 10 years probably the most accurate American poll there is. And so this guy.
I know Scott Rasmussen. I have a great deal of respect for him.
Oh, okay, cool. That's good because I don't know him, so I'm glad to hear that. But so he says, and I did not realize this. He said, who's really in the tank for Kamala, and that is baby boomers over 70. And he said they are almost all voting Democrat Harris. And his thinking was, this kind of matches my personal some people I know too, but I still would never have drawn this conclusion. He says, well, okay, they're up there in age. Most of them are now retired. A lot of them did pretty well financially, and they're educated, and although they're not elitists or don't have any they don't have any connection to the government. They like to think they are. And he said, and they hate Trump. So that actually surprised me. He said that voting bloc is voting almost entirely for Harris. And I was really kind of surprised by that. Are you?
I have not heard that, and I'm frankly very skeptical of it because it would seem to me, and maybe I'm wrong, but the older and wiser you are, and the more experienced you are, the quicker you are able to spot when somebody is being evasive with you. And I would expect that there is more skepticism among older voters towards Harris, and in some respects towards Trump too, than you would find among younger voters. I don't know. That's an interesting theory.
Yeah, and that's see, I brought that up because that's kind of what I thought too, or I could see that kind of being split 50-50, but the fact that it would be the vast majority, I have a hard time buying that. Even though I live here and literally, I'm sitting in literally one of the three most liberal congressional districts in the United States, and almost everyone I know in my little world thinks that way, and they're all about that age. So so I never bothered to extrapolate that to the bigger public. I didn't think that would be a thing. The other
Yeah.
thing, go ahead. No, go ahead. Please go ahead.
No. The demographic fact that I just picked up on yesterday, I think that I think is really interesting. I think this was for Falger or Atwood, one of those guys that have they got 16 right and they got 20 right. About 6% of the voters, likely voters, at this point say they are undecided, and 6%, that's not unexpected. But there's about 12% that say, yeah, I know who I'm going to vote for, but I could change my mind. And 12% of likely voters, if they suddenly change their mind and vote for the other guy, that could change the outcome from what everybody expected.
Yeah.
And especially with what's happened in the last week with the garbage truck and the McDonald's appearance and the massive success of that Madison Square Garden rally, I would not be surprised if a lot of those kinds of undecided voters or decided voters, if they switch from Harris to Trump.
Yeah. I know. And the amazing thing is everyone talks about the October surprise. Here they brought it on themselves.
Yeah.
I just find this kind of amazing. Okay, yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And they were talking about that on Hannity today too, about the fact that this comedian that was at the Trump rally at MSG, he had this joke about Puerto Ricans. First of all, I never even heard of this guy. So, yeah. So, they're playing this up on liberal media, la da 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 da, and then this comes around and completely wipes it off the map. And like they were saying on Hannity, I doubt even though they're playing this up among the MSNBC crowd, I doubt very few people, even liberals, changed their vote because of that. But this thing when somebody said, okay, you got a 2-bit comedian who told a bad joke. That's one thing. You got the president of the United States telling half America they're garbage. That's another thing altogether. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I think this could end up being the thing that basically moves the election. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah. Harris. So she was asked at Andrews this afternoon as she was departing. She was asked if she talked with Biden last night after that remark, and she said yes, he called, but that didn't come up. And I thought to myself, there aren't 3 people in America who believe that you didn't ask him.
I'm laughing. Oh yeah, sure. Tell us again, honey. It's like, and I have to point out here for the listeners and the viewers, Mark, I use the term honey as an insult. I do. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
If that was disparaging, that was the point. That's the reason I said it. So yeah, who's going to believe that? It's like, come on. It's like,
nobody believes.
Yeah, it's like asking, are you wearing underwear? It's like, it's like, oh my God. All right.
Well, that sounds like something Joe Biden would have.
Oh, the other demographic thing I read here, and I think this was on Red State. So I got a lot of people come on the show from both Red State and hotair.com. And I can't remember. Let me see if I can find. Oh, it was Bob Hogue who wrote this on Red State, and he said that, and I can't remember if this was it was a Harris poll. I remember, because I just want to point out to everybody, it has nothing to do with Kamala Harris. That's the name of the company. It's a Harris poll. They've determined that 48% of all Gen Z voters, and that's people under 34, is it? Basically lie to people about who they're going to vote for. Half of them lie. They won't actually tell people who they're voting for. And I just find that
you know what I think that reflects? Jim, I think that reflects the social pressure from their educational backgrounds and social pressure from people of like mind hanging out with each other.
Yeah.
But boy, if you are suddenly thinking, man, I did better under Trump than I've done under Biden. Why shouldn't I vote for Trump? But you don't want to say anything about that because half your friends are going to look at you like you're an idiot. So you don't say anything.
If it wasn't
I,
Trump,
I, I,
Mark, if it wasn't Trump, I think there's so many people who hate Trump. If it was just a generic Republican candidate, I think they'd be 20 points ahead.
I go back and forth on that, Jim. To me, there will never be another Ronald Reagan. I admit it. That's my fundamental bias. And Reagan was, in many respects, I think Trump is Reagan-esque in his policy approach, but he's not Reagan-esque in his, the personality that he projects. Reagan was a gentleman. Trump is a he's a ruffian.
Yeah, right. That's right. He's a boxer. Yeah.
He's a boxer. Yeah, he's a tough guy. And a lot of people in America are just, as you well know, are just tired of all of the BS from both parties. And Trump comes along and says, "Hey, that's a bunch of BS from both parties," and they say, "Yeah, that's right. I'm going to vote for that guy."
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. But that's really interesting though, Mark. It's just, but because I don't know if you necessarily disagreed with me on that. I mean, because yeah, he is a ruffian. I mean, what I read just recently, someone was saying, I think this. I'm pulling this out of my butt. I think this was David Strom on Hot Air. He was saying that it's from, if you look at the numbers, this election's coming down to much more to personality than policy. Now, and of course, at my age, and I'm guessing you agree, I think that's stupid. but people do. People, there's a huge number of people in America who don't like Donald Trump. They don't like him personally, and so because of that, they're not going to vote for him. Even though, like you said, no, I don't think anybody can argue the fact their life was better 4 or 5 years ago. But still, they won't.
Well, and in addition to that, the reason that it's not a debate about policy is because Kamala Harris won't tell us the specifics of her policies.
Well, she's got nothing to run on.
It's been the most policy. Her campaign has been a policy-free zone from the beginning, from the time she got the nomination. And nobody should be surprised that she has avoided sitting down with a bunch of reporters from the New York Times or the Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal or the Epoch Times, and we've tried. She won't do it. And when she does talk to somebody like Brett Baer or some of the other folks that have on the cable areas that have been able to talk to her, she gets asked questions and she's so evasive. She will not say specifically what she's going to do. So how do you have a policy debate?
I don't know. I also don't know why you'd vote for her then either, but it's like, you at least want to know, don't you? I mean,
one would think.
The way I look at this is the only single appearance she's had this entire abbreviated campaign that went well was that debate. And even that, she didn't really get any uptick from it for the very simple reason people did notice she didn't answer the questions. She handled and composed herself well. And she, as a presentation, it was good, but she still didn't answer the questions.
She did.
She didn't answer the questions. Yeah, go ahead.
That's probably the other most surprising thing to me about this campaign. I frankly, I watched that debate and I thought to myself, she's going to get 5 or 6 points out of this because boy, she has just come across as smooth and intelligent, and smart, and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then she didn't get anything. And that's when I really began to think people are not buying this.
Yeah, even at her best, they aren't buying it, right?
Even at her best, yeah.
Yeah. So no, but there was the same problem even during the debate. I think after people thought about it a little bit, I think they realized she didn't answer any of the questions. She didn't say anything, So I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Now I've contended too. I'm curious about what you think about this. I've contended that speaking of that debate, this is one of the few, if only, election cycles ever where the vice presidential debate actually had more consequence than the presidential debate. You know,
I think you can make a good case for that. I think a lot of people were surprised that J.D. Vance was as substantive and direct as he was, and I think there were probably a lot of people that were surprised that Tim Walz didn't, make a much more serious mistake on camera than he did. So, that was actually not a bad debate, I thought.
No, it wasn't. And you're right. Although the conservatives want to think that Vance walked away from it, actually, it was almost even Steven. I mean, Walz didn't look terrible. He did call himself a knucklehead. It was kind of stupid.
Yeah,
but still, it's like, and he's our governor here, and I have personally dealt with him on a couple occasions, and I have to yes, I have to tell you that in person, he comes off as a really good guy. That kind of like he's engaged and he asks the right questions. And I've been personally quite impressed with him. Now, the other person I dealt with, I don't know if this makes any difference to you because it's kind of local. Keith Ellison is his attorney general here. Yes, that was the opposite.
He used to be here.
That say again? What was that?
He used to be here in D.C.
Oh, yeah,
Keith Ellison.
So I don't know if you know him or have met him.
I don't, but I watched him.
He made about the worst first impression of any person I've ever met in my life. I mean, the guy just came off as a arrogant, smug scumbag. So I mean, and I'm talking to these two guys at the same time, and the contrast could not have been different. I don't know if I'd, as a governor, even I don't know if I'd vote for Walz again. But the thing is, I mean, I do want to. I can't sit here and just trash him because I think his character is generally good. I really do. But
well, you mentioned Keith Ellison's, shall we say, sometimes unpleasant personal presentation. The other fact that has gotten virtually zero attention in this campaign, which I think it really deserves a great deal of attention, is the fact that Kamala Harris as vice president has had a 93% staff turnover rate.
Yes, right.
That is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Even the most difficult guys in the Senate and the House to work for, you don't see them with even more than a 50% turnover rate.
Yeah.
She's at 93%.
Yeah, and you
can't keep anybody.
I'm sure our one of our senators here, Amy Klobuchar. So now Amy in the primary here, in the Democratic primary recently, she got 97% of the vote. I mean, it's mind-boggling.
Yep.
She's the only politician in the entire state of Minnesota that's above water. And the reason is she gets stuff done. I have a conservative friend of mine. He's the most conservative person I know. He's in construction. He's in building. He's dealt with her and her office. And he says, I've never voted for a liberal in my life, but if that woman ran for president, I'd vote for her because her office is responsive. She does a good job. She does work, but the reason I brought that up is because she's notorious for being tough on her staff. I mean, apparently she's just I don't want to use the B word, but she's a B word to work for, supposedly.
She is tough to work for. But I'll tell you, Jim, in the 2020 Democratic primary, I may have even written about this a bit. I don't recall if I did, but I know I told people that Klobuchar is not going to win the nomination, but don't count her out in the future. She is articulate. She is smart. She works hard. She is somebody to be reckoned with.
Yeah. No, she is. Unfortunately, she's not the most charismatic person on the planet, and that kind of goes against her. And I mean, I hate to say this, but people do make judgments about this. She's not the most attractive woman either, But still, I mean, that's unfortunate because people should look past that. Because this woman has it going on. If the Democrats are looking for real leadership and real competence, she should be the person, you know. So I hope that stuff doesn't end up going against her, but whatever. You know, what do I know?
Yeah.
I'm a guy on the radio.
Yeah. I'm just a Oklahoma boy that ended up in Washington doing reporting. So what do I know?
But you're doing okay. You're doing all right. All right. Well, so let's end it with this, Mark. Do you have a prediction? Do you want to give a prediction or not? And if you don't want to, I understand. You're a journalist, you know.
Well, let me tell you, in the 2012 campaign, and I was the editorial page editor at that time at the Washington Examiner. I made a prediction on the Friday before the election on Tuesday that Mitt Romney was going to beat Obama by 3 percentage points. That was the stupidest thing I've ever written.
Well, okay. No, just a second. I'll put a little defense in for you. First of all, I'm curious. Did you put your name on that or just the editorial board? Did you actually?
No. It was my personal column.
Okay. All right. So if it wasn't for Hurricane Sandy, Romney probably would have won. That's what I think. But I don't know if you see.
You know, you can make that case. You can make that case, and if he had responded differently to the CNN reporters' "quote unquote" correction on Russia, that might have been different too. But my point is, you know, you stick your neck out there, and sometimes the axe comes down.
Oh yeah, I know. Believe me, I know.
But here we go. You asked me, and I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
I think Trump is going to win. I think he's going to win. I hesitate to put a percentage on it. I think it's going to be close, but I think he's going to win. And I think the Republicans are going to end up with a 51-49, maybe 52-48 Republican majority in the Senate. And they're going to keep their House majority, but it's still going to be real tiny, maybe 6, 7, 8 votes.
Okay, Mark, let's do this. Don't put a percentage on it. Just go at electoral college versus popular vote. Try that.
Probably 290.
Yeah. Do you think he'll win the popular vote or not?
I think he will.
Yeah.
You know, I think he will. I think this garbage thing is. I think that's gonna counter a lot of, shall we say, fake ballots.
Yeah, and should I tell you, Mark, that I mean, you just said almost exactly what I was thinking too. That's pretty much my prediction right down the line. So yeah, I think.
Well, I don't know whether you should be more concerned about the fact that we agree so much, or I should be more concerned.
I know I'm a floozy. Why are you hanging out with me? You don't want to do that. Mark, the next time I come to Washington or Maryland or wherever, but it'll probably be DC. We should get together for a drink or something. I don't know. Do you do that sort of thing?
Absolutely.
I love that. I would love that.
I haven't had a drink of alcohol in 33 years, thank God for sobriety, but I would be more than happy to sit and drink a Coke and you have whatever you wish and we'll just tell each other lies.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you so much, man. I can't thank you enough, really.
It's fun. Let's do it again.
Yeah, let's. You take care, all right?
All righty. Bye-bye.
We'll see you. Bye-bye. That's Mark Tapscott. He's the congressional correspondent for the Epoch Times. He's from Maryland. He's calling us from Maryland, but he works in. I've talked to him. You know, he's been on the show before. He says he's on the Hill when Congress is in session most days. So, and not only that, and this didn't come up, but he knows pretty much everybody in Congress personally. And you know, like he said, he's been doing this for like 40 years. So, you know, I suppose he does. And so, anyway, we love talking to him. So that's our show for tonight, everybody, because Blog Talk Radio is not online, and so we're not taking any phone calls. And I went overtime with Mark, and I wanted to do that because for that very reason. And so we're done. So tomorrow night, Halloween, right? It's Halloween tomorrow night. So the crew is here. The month in review panel we're putting on. Same crew as last year. Big Halloween show. Big shoe. And so that would be Don Zorro, Tim Conaway, and Larry Newman. And well, Conaway had if you've been to Rumble or YouTube and watched the highlight reel we have of the first 100 shows here at Jim Peters at Night, one of the things in that highlight reel is one of the jokes that Conaway pulled at the last Halloween, and that's pretty damn funny. So I don't know if I'm building him up and we have too much expectation here or what. But but then again, Larry he dresses up, he looks very nice, very very good looking man. And Zorro comes in costume anyway because we can't reveal his identity because he works in intelligence. So so there's that. So he's going to be wearing a mask no matter what, even on a normal show. He wears a mask, so he'll be dressed up, I'm sure. I bought my costume this afternoon. It's not much, but it'll work. So that's tomorrow night, everybody. That's 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, and then on Monday, I'm doing solo because just want to wrap all this whole election thing up, and we're taking Tuesday election night off. So that's what we're doing here. I hope everything's good in your end of the world. I want to thank you folks for watching and listening. Really appreciate it because that's the reason we do this. I'm Jim Peters. This is Jim Peters at Night. Good night, Esperanza. Good night, Uncle Donnie. And good night to you, wherever you are. We'll see you tomorrow night. Take care, everyone.